This video was recommended by a couple of heroes on the previous video. If you guys are watching this, I hope this video helped, and I hope everyone enjoys the video. Welcome back to yet another edition of our State of Decay 2 series, This or That. The series where we compare two very similar things in State of Decay 2, talk about their pros, cons, every unique feature, and then come to a final decision on which one is better. You know the deal by now. Today we've got two Cleo facilities. You know, the mysterious AI satellite thing? These two facilities we've got are the Cleo Relay and the Cleo Haven device. Two large facilities that look and feel almost identical. Very unique from the rest of the facilities. The things they do are slightly different, but does that make one better than the other? I guess we'll see. So what is on the menu today? What are we covering? Well, we'll start off with what each facility does, costs, and then the time it takes to build each one. We'll then talk about some alternatives to the facilities, weigh them up, and then come to a final decision on which one is better. Lots to cover, as always. So let's just start this off and talk about the Cleo Relay. The Cleo Relay can do two things, call for Cleo drop and call for Cleo ammo drop. These are both supply drops the Cleo Relay can call in. The Cleo drop gives us 64 Cleo ammo, 2 to 3 Cleo explosives or incendiaries, 1 Cleo weapon, melee or ranged, and something called an odd little Cleo machine, which doesn't really tell us what it does, but it's basically like a super whistling box mine. It draws the zombies in with a little beeping noise, and then after some time, it explodes. This supply drop costs 512 prestige, which is a pretty hefty cost for one supply drop. The Cleo ammo supply drop costs the same, but instead of costing prestige, it costs you influence. I've already said this in a couple of videos, but if you get the chance to pay for something with influence instead of prestige, you should, because there's so many great things that cost prestige, and it can be an absolute grind to get. The Cleo ammo drop gives you 256 Cleo ammo in total. Not bad at all. Now once you've requested a supply drop from this thing, it's not just as simple as walking up to the drop and collecting your goodies. No. The game wants you to really work for it, and so it makes you wait about 10 minutes for the machine to process, and then you have to fight off a 3-minute home-based siege. The siege will give you 200 influence if you successfully complete it, which does help you recoup some of the resource you spent. But that 10 minutes you have to wait is annoying though. But is it worth the wait when we take a look at what the facility costs and the time it takes to build? Here's everything it costs on Lethal Zone, the hardest difficulty there is. 5 materials, 1 labour, and a large facility slot. That's very good, surprisingly so. It takes only 3 minutes to build as well, although it could be slightly more or less depending on your group's morale and some other bonuses and curveballs like missing a few bolts. What you also need for the Cleo Relay, what it really costs, is something called a Cleo Core. This is a Red Talon prefab you buy off the Red Talon Prestige traders you can call in from the radio, and it costs 4,000 prestige. Roughly 3 or 4 successful games of Daybreak. Full games, bear in mind. This turns a seemingly cheap, really cheap facility into one of, if not, the most expensive facility in the entire game. I mean, in terms of single items, it's the most expensive thing you could buy, so the cost is a big drawback. Now the Haven device costs significantly less, costing 10 materials, 8 scraps of circuitry, 1 labour, a large facility slot, power and water if you want the best version of it, and 25 parts per day. Now I know what you're thinking. That doesn't sound cheap. It doesn't sound cheap at all, and it isn't cheap, especially if you don't have the amenities active. But the special item we need for this facility, the Haven capsule, doesn't cost 4,000 prestige. In fact, it doesn't cost anything. It's free. You can only obtain it by completing the mission Meeting Cleo, the Haven Protocol, which is the 4th mission to a series of quests given to you by Dr. Hoffman, a character exclusive to the Trumbull Valley map. Apart from the 4 legacies, this is the main quest for the Trumbull Valley map, and you can trigger the quest by driving up to this part of the map here, where the Doctor lives. So you can just play the game normally and obtain the Haven device as you go, which I think is quite good. There's quite a lot of quests you need to jump through to obtain it though. Building the Haven device only takes 4 minutes, but what makes it a little bit tricky is that during the 4 minutes you have to defend the base against a very high level siege, which only stops when the building is complete. So a lot of effort for the Haven device. But what does it actually do? Well, despite the hoops you need to jump through to get it, the Haven device only does one thing. When zombies enter the base, they turn green and in just a couple of seconds, they die. How does this happen? Cleo magic. I don't know. They just do. This works on any zombie, even ferals and juggernauts, although they can resist it for slightly longer. If the facility has power, it can also insta-kill zombies that step into the base's safe zone, but it can only really kill a handful of zombies before it goes into a cooldown state, which can last several minutes. Any zombies who survive the Haven device's wrath, either by cooldown or running away, will turn yellow, which I think is pretty cool. Now this is the Haven device we're looking at after update 33, but before update 33, Prime Haven device was the best facility in the game, maybe tied with the workshop and the infirmary. We have to talk about its Prime for a moment because it was so good. First of all, it had no cooldown mode, meaning the facility didn't need power. It would kill any zombie that even stepped foot in the base's safe zone. No zombie would even make it to the walls of the base before getting insta-killed, unless the feral absolutely sprinted for it. It didn't cost any parts per day, meaning it didn't require any water either. No power, no water, no parts. And the best thing about it was the fact that it gave you minus 80 threat level for free permanently, preventing any naturally occurring sieges to happen, unless you were somehow making above 80 noise, which at that point in time was impossible. But as I've already said in the influence video, if you moved into either the Church on the Hill or Whitney Field, you could still trigger sieges, but because the Haven device is killing the zombies, there's nothing really to fight, and so the game just starts shoveling prestige your way. You can make over 1,000 influence in just 10 minutes, and you could even go AFK doing it. This was a brilliant money making method, in fact it still is.
No, it's not.
But now the Haven device is just a shell of what it was. But can it still beat the Cleo Relay, even now? Well, what's the point of the Cleo Relay? You pay prestige and then even more prestige or influence to get a small care package. So what makes it worth it? Well, the whole idea of this facility is that in the long run, Cleo supplies will be cheaper. The supply drop's value is meant to be more than the cost of the drop itself. For instance, this supply drop I got here is worth 678 prestige, but it only cost 512 to call in, 166 prestige profit. As I've already said, Cleo ammo for influence instead of prestige is nice too. So in theory, if you called in enough drops, you'd eventually make a profit. But we're talking a lot of drops here, about 25. I don't know if I can be bothered grinding Daybreak for that long. Now let's look at some alternatives to both facilities that could be a better swap. Starting with the Cleo Relay, there's actually a way to obtain a free Cleo Relay that lets you call in both supply drops for influence instead of prestige. It's exclusive to one base on Trumbull Valley. You probably already know what it is. It's the Red Talon Daybreak FOB. This is by far a much better alternative. Just move here, get all the Cleo weaponry you want, and then move bases again. Or you could just buy the weapons from the prestige traders themselves, without needing to waste 4,000 prestige. And with the current state of the Haven device, the best alternative you could have is just getting better base defense. Equip more survivors with 50 cal weapons, pyro launchers and machine guns. Block base entrances and weak points with cars, or maybe even put some mines and traps down on the ground if you think it's needed. That large facility slot could be better spent on a trade depot, lounge, or a sniper tower if you want even more security. So we've established everything both facilities can do, what they cost, and some much better alternatives, and it's fair to say that neither of these facilities are fantastic. In fact, if it was up to me, I'd advise not taking either. But that's not how this series works. I have to pick one, and so I will. But if we're going off of price, general everyday usefulness, and the fact that there's no one true alternative, I would say that the Haven device just narrowly wins it. If we were talking about Prime Haven device though, the Cleo Relay wouldn't stand a chance.